This video is going to show you how to rotate an image. Many photographs are taken, the camera is not held perfectly level, so naturally you get a kind of a crooked photograph, which normally you won't notice, but whenever you have things like horizons of the ocean or maybe a building, that you can very tell that it's very crooked. In this case, you can see that the horizon is slanting down. And we're going to use a couple little extra tools, not just the rotation, but a couple of tricks to make this a little bit easier for you. Instead of going right to the rotation tool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a guideline down. And the way I did that is I just clicked on the ruler up here and I just pulled down and put the line across. I'm just going to line it up maybe right there on the very edge of this horizon. Because I don't know, because the horizon is not straight in my picture, this guideline is straight. So I can just kind of align the horizon to this guideline. When I rotate, I'll know it's straight. So it's just a very easy visual to help you make sure it's perfectly straight. So once you've placed your guideline down there, there's actually a couple ways you can do this. You can use your rotate tool, which is right here. Looks like a little square is being rotated, and you can click. And it's also under Layer, Transform, Arbitrary Rotation. So probably easier to get to this little rotate option here. Now it gives you a grid, which I believe is supposed to help you line things up, but what I've noticed that is when you turn your image, unless I'm missing something, the grid moves too. So it doesn't really help you, but we do still have our guideline there. So that's why we put the guideline, is we can see exactly when it's straight. And I'm just going to, and you can do very fine increments with this angle, with the up arrow, and just look to see how it's a little bit too close here. So I'm going to go back the other way a little bit, and just keep 1.1 at a time until it looks pretty straight using your guideline. And when you hit rotate, it's straight. Now the problem is when you're done, you're left with these corners, because if you take a rectangular picture and then rotate it, what was in the corners is now lower. This was the top of our image. Well, now it's been lowered, so it doesn't know what to put up here, so it just leaves it blank. So we have to fix that somehow. And there's kind of two ways that we can do it. One is using that clone tool that we've learned about. Now in the sky here, let me do the lower part first. You're going to have this in all four corners. In this part, because of all the busy, rocks and grass, and it's going to be pretty easy to kind of clone that corner out. Same over here. I can select right here and just paint straight across, and no one would ever know. It didn't go quite all the way. The problem is in the sky. The skies are actually fairly tricky. Now, the first time I did this, I actually got the top one here to blend fairly well. So not too bad. You can see a little bit of a line, especially right in here. Now it's getting worse. To get that sky to blur out, go all the way across there. That's even worse. Over here, though, I noticed it's much more difficult to get the exact shade to go all the way up. And that's not too bad. But if you can't clone it, let me show you another option you have, and that's simply to delete part of the picture. And let me undo back to, okay. And the way we're going to do this is we're just going to crop the picture, losing part of our picture, but also fixing this problem here. So I'm just going to quickly draw a rectangle on my picture, and you're going to just slowly move these over until you can't move them anymore, until you hit that rectangular or that checkerboard pattern. So I can go up just a little bit, then over here I can go over to about right there before it hits down there. So you just kind of move these corners over as much as you can while leaving off that checkerboard pattern, and then you can go up to Image and Crop to Selection, and it just deletes it. So if you can't clone it out, you can just delete it out using that Crop to Selection. You can also use this knife right here. If you click the knife and click on your image, it kind of darkens the corners. So that's just another way. I don't traditionally use this tool, but for one thing, it makes it kind of hard to see exactly. If it's in the middle here, it's very clear what part's going to be kept. But when you're trying to get this very dark checkerboard pattern, it's a little hard to see. So typically, I won't use that option, but you can use that knife to crop as well. So let me redo the crop image. So once you've done that, you can crop the image using Image, Crop to Selection, and you'll get a perfectly aligned, the horizon is now straight, and we have fixed the problem with the corners. So many photographs you're going to need to do a rotation because it is off just a little bit. And know that it's that icon right here. It looks like a little square being rotated. Just click on your picture once to pull up this grid, and you can rotate it in very small increments till it is just right. And again, I would use the guideline to make sure that it's perfectly level. There is a pivot point here. If you can see this little option here, and you can actually move this circle down here. Not very helpful when it comes to fixing horizons, but what this does is it moves, as we learned in vectors, it changes the pivot point to something other than the center. Again, not very helpful with aligning photographs, horizons, but there are times when we're going to learn in another video that we're going to create kind of a starburst pattern, and we want to center it or rotate it on a point other than the very center of the picture. So just be aware that you can either type numbers in here, or it's actually easier to move this little circle around, and it will rotate based on that point, that pivot point. So that's rotation. Very commonly used and needed tool in bitmap software.